So, guys, welcome to another edition of Europe is Coming. This time we are joined by a guest. With me, I have John Singleton, and our special guest this week is Thibaud Celine from GOWOD.
I'm doing good. Thanks for
Thibaud?
having me.
Thanks for being here. I can see that you are in the GOWOD
I am.
HQ in France.
I am.
And
we don't move for the holidays. Getting ready for next season.
just straight through. I've already got my Christmas jumper on, so I'm ready for Christmas. So the last time that you guys saw each other was you're quite good friends, aren't you? You're good mates. You play golf
Yes,
together.
we are. And I have to admit my defeat on this weekend, John.
It was up and down.
It took the lead on the first day and a half, and then I made a comeback. Wasn't enough to win, but I made a comeback on the last day.
I will say this though, it was the most beautiful course I've ever played on that
The first one,
day.
We need to go back again. We are actually planning on our next golf weekend. So Jackie and my wife might hear this for the first time here.
Yeah.
Golf widows.
Exactly. They are invited, by the way.
Where do you play golf when you come to visit? Oh, okay. do you play golf when you come to visit in Mallorca?
We did last year.
We did. We played actually during the Crown. We managed to sneak off with Willie for a round in the north.
Yeah, we need to organize that too this year if we can.
Yeah.
It's almost next year, isn't it? 2024. I guess you're coming to see us
of course.
for the Crown
GOWOD
again.
is going to be a proud sponsor of the event.
Perfect.
And so I'm coming. I don't know if Willie is going to make the trip. He has a lucky announcement for this year with his wife, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to bring him with me.
That's congratulations, Willie and his wife. That's really nice, good news for them. But let's talk about GOWOD as a sponsor, because you guys are obviously very active, taking care of a lot of CrossFit athletes, sponsoring a lot of people, supporting a lot of events. But you missed out on going to see Dubai. What was happening there? Why didn't you go? And did you watch it
So I
online?
did watch it. I missed nothing, to be honest. But Dubai is a special event. It's an awesome event to watch from a broadcast perspective, but on site, it's quite complicated to activate. As you can see on the videos and the live stream, there is not a lot of people in the stands, and so making the trip, activating on site is a huge budget for us, a huge expense, and we didn't do it this year. It was also the year back to the tennis stadium, and I was not aware of that. I prefer the tennis stadium compared to the Coca-Cola Arena last year. I think it's Dubai itself is like you stay in the same hotel, you chill all day, and then you throw down at night, and you all come together and have dinner, which I do like, because it's one of the only event during the year where you can actually meet people like for a long time. We could actually have played golf, but I didn't come. So, but it was an awesome event. I watched it all.
So who stood out for you? What performances did you enjoy, the athlete-wise?
Roman was quite impressive. Again, it's not a surprise, but he led the way throughout the weekend. You could see that there was no risk of him losing the competition. Lazar put a great show. Ricky made a huge comeback. And on the female side, I was really impressed by Claudia Gluck. I didn't know if she had what's needed to, stay on the top. She started great on day one, but I was afraid of the next events. And I mean, yeah, except for the last one where she took a risk, she was consistent throughout the weekend and made the podium, which is I think the greatest achievement for her in her career at the moment. And Karin Freyova always really good. She proved that Rogue was just a flu. She didn't perform, but she did at Dubai, and that's pretty good. I think we need more European faces on the top of the podiums to maybe negotiate more spots for the games.
Absolutely, and that's always been the argument that they've put that there's not enough. But surely Europe is the toughest region to get through to get to the games.
By far, I think that and Oceania are the two biggest.
So let's talk about 2024 for GOWOD. What are you seeing as in the new season as being things that you will be participating in?
We are about to sign a deal for the 2024 season with CrossFit. So we're gonna be the official mobility sponsor of the season, which includes open, quarters, semis, and the games. So I'm thrilled about it. Thank you.
Congratulations.
It's been a long discussion on what do we want to do this season. We always try to find new ways to activate, to gather the community. And this year it's in Texas, so we don't know anything about the city. I've never been there, so it's new for us. It can be a little bit scary, but we're gonna make it work. And French Showdown. We're from France, so it's quite exciting. I have a bunch of friends that are actually running the event, so I'm super pumped for them. And the venue is going to be insane. Like, it's better than Berlin. It's brand new. It looks like an NBA stadium. You're going to be able to activate on site. And what I like is that it's not going to be only an elite competition. It's going to be a competition, a community competition at the same time. And that's, for me, a reason of the success of the French Showdown is being able to have pro and elite athletes while having community, scale division, teams, masters, like all those guys competing at the same time. This is what brings more eyeballs to the competition, and they're going to do that again this year.
I mean, that sounds like you know more about the format than I do. So, I mean, what other details can you give us? Because we are quite short on information over here. We don't know. I mean, like, the rule book hasn't been released yet, for example. But John and I were talking about maybe the reason why the rule book hasn't been released is because deals with people like yourself haven't yet been completely
I don't think we have an
finalised.
impact on the rule book. To be fair, I think they should have released it before, because if you look at the athlete standpoint, you want to know what the season is going to be about. You want to know the dates. You want to know the standards. You want to know how to record a video properly, judging, like everything. And this should be done by 2 weeks after the games for next season. That's my vision of it, and I know it's also John's. What we know is schedule at the moment. We know the schedule. We know the events now. We don't know a lot about Fort Worth and how long the event's going to be. It's going to be a Thursday, Sunday. It's going to be a Wednesday, Sunday with a day of rest. We have no idea. And to be honest, they don't share these informations with us. What they do to allow us to activate outside of the arena is to tell us, all right, you shouldn't activate on Friday morning. Like stuff like that, where they give us hints, but not proper information.
John, what do you think about the situation at the moment with not having more information than we currently have?
I think a consistent discussion that everyone's always been in is like more transparency and more communication is useful. And we're still in that same point of that same discussion for reasons. The rulebook is significant. not been released yet. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but especially for someone like teams who've had these big changes. Some years, even 2 years ago, all teams basically had to be living together from the 1st of January, which is only 2 weeks away. And so no teams really know if that's going to be the same case, a different case. And I think one of the frustrating things is, it was said that it was be released in the first week of December. Then it doesn't get released, but there's no like, it's not, oh, sorry guys, we need to sort this out. It's just, oh, it just didn't happen. So I think just some form of communication or a communication channel would be really useful, just so we can go like, okay, that's the reason why, we understand, let's try and support we can help support that for our athletes who we tend to communicate with. So yeah, I think just increased communication. I don't see any negativity in that process.
As a sponsor, Thibaud, do you have presumably you're speaking to another part of the games team. You're not necessarily communicating with the same people that John would be.
No, absolutely not. So I speak to the partnership team. David Woods and Lauren Jones are my point of contacts. They don't know everything. There is kind of a wall between the games team and the partnership team at the games, which is also the same between the games team and the education team. I think they communicate, but they don't know everything about each other, and it can be problematic. I think, yeah, I mean, CrossFit, they want to be super protective of everything, which is, it could be the brand, but it's also about workouts, schedule. Like, they try to keep it as secret as possible for as long as possible. And so the partnership team basically learn about the events, workouts, or rule books like maybe 2 days before us. So yeah, we have informations prior to the general public as a sponsors. As sponsor, I have information about the open that I cannot share, stuff like that. But it's mostly about like, what is our marketing campaign gonna look like? What are their plans on boosting the number of participants at the open, stuff like that. So it's not super secret, but I joined John on this topic. Communication hasn't been the best thing for CrossFit in the last 2 to 3 years, whether it is for the affiliates or the sport. And I don't know if the PFAA is going to change something, but having someone that relays the information directly to the athletes, to the coaches, to the camps, might be even if there's just like, I'm sorry, we cannot release the whole book for this reason. It will be released in a month. That's an information. That's something we can relay on, and that's all we want. We just want clarity sometimes, even though we know it's not possible, even though they cannot respect the deadline. It's fine. It also happens to us, John, myself, as business owners. Like, sometimes we think we can release something early February, but it's not the case, and it's fine as soon as we communicate correctly with either our members or our team. So they have some work on that for sure.
I mean, you guys are both in the same situation in that your businesses are deep into CrossFit, but also you're huge fans of the sport as well. So it must be frustrating on a personal level as well, not being able to get the information that you want. Are you perfectly, completely happy with like the season, the way that it is currently laid out, as a business owner or as a fan? I mean, I don't know which one to ask you that question as, but let's talk as a fan.
I think it's quite the same answer for both. Because as a fan, the bad decisions taken by HQ are gonna then have an impact on our business. And so, like, our members, GOWOD members, are also fan of the sport, and they follow the season, and they follow the professional, and so it's quite related. I want to say, I think there is something better to do. Like, I know we're going to talk about it, and John and I have talked about it, I don't know, 20 or 25 times already, even on a golf course. But um, this is not a proper season for a professional sport. This is a season that is based on the roots of CrossFit back in 2010, where you had the Open, regionals, and the games. And we have now almost the same situation with quarters in the middles and regionals being semifinals. But except that, nothing has changed a lot. Athletes don't have a lot of opportunities to earn money, get visibility, which is also the same for us as a brand. We get 2 to 3 big events and the CrossFit Games to activate on-site in-person competition, and that's not enough. To this day, we're leader in this space in the mobility category, so it's fine for us. Basically the only brand you see throughout the year is GOWOD, but it doesn't leave enough space for our competitors, and I'm not sure it is actually positive, because if you take Wattproof, Pliability, all those guys, and you give them an opportunity to be there and activate and grow their market, our market is going to grow at the same time, and the best is going to win. And we're doing everything we can to be the best. But I would like those guys to have the opportunity to grow their brand, and so that's why we need a real season. And as a fan and as a business owner and as a CrossFitter, what I would like the most is to be able to watch CrossFit week in, week out, like every weekend, because I want to stay motivated. I want to stay entertained by watching elite doing CrossFit. And I'm a big time golfer, as well as John, and I watch the PGA Tour every weekend. And again, this weekend, there was an event called the PNC Championship with Tiger Woods and his son, and I watched it. And guess what I did on Sunday morning? I played golf, because I spent my Saturday night watching Tiger hitting great shots, and I wanted to do it. It didn't look the same, I promise you, but I tried. I tried. So I think that's what we need the
I mean,
most.
it's the same. You're absolutely right, because when you like, even when I was a kid, when Wimbledon would come on, that 2 weeks in the park,
Yep.
everyone was playing tennis. Like it's just like it's just watch and do, watch and
Look
be
at
inspired. But you were
the Tour
saying,
de France. Tour de France is in July for
yeah.
3 weeks. It's insane, at least in France, how many people you see on a bike during the Tour de France. And if you talk
Mhm.
to a cycling shop owner, their biggest spike is during the Tour de France. And it does not mean that people are trying to do the same thing as the professionals. They don't try to do 200 kilometers a day, but they want to bike just because it reminds them what they saw this evening or whatever. Like, you need that to go to the gym and be motivated, whether it is to compete or not. I am not competing in CrossFit. I do not compete, but I train hard, and it keeps me motivated to watch these beasts throw down on the floor, and watch Laura against Tia, or like Justin trying to go back to the top. Like, I need that for myself to stay in the game. But at the moment, we have Rogue, you have Dubai, Wadapalooza, and then 6 months of nothing. The Open you cannot watch, the quarterfinals you
Mhm.
cannot watch, and then semifinals, which actually are pretty boring to watch, because you watch the same workout over and over for 3 weeks. It's different, it's different persons, but it's the same workout. And then you have the games, and that's what needs to change at first. Is we need to see more CrossFit on a weekly basis on TV. And one of the reason why big TV channels are not interested in covering CrossFit is that no one is going to tune up just for the games. Like, people need to follow a true season. You need to um, you need to know the athletes better. You need to know who they are on a personal level, and then you need to watch the show.
Mhm.
Like, we have no trash talk in CrossFit. You know the reason? Because if you trash talk someone in November, you need to wait August to then compete against them. So it doesn't matter if you do it or not. Like, people are gonna forget. But like, if you have more regular events when you can watch these persons throw down against each other, it's gonna be awesome. And the beauty of it, and we can go back to that after, but is that we already have the system. All the events are there, they exist, they are run properly, they are independent from CrossFit HQ. They don't need HQ to be a part of the season. So there is something we can do with what already exists without having to inject a lot of money to have a proper season.
Okay, so explain to me the season overall structure that you have in your mind, the thing that you've been chewing over, because I'm thinking from the conversations I've had with people that organize events, just how expensive it is for those events and difficult it is. So, like, let's hear your practical solution to this problem.
The first question we should ask ourselves is, why should change in order to make this season happen? Because there is something, and that this idea
Mm.
and reflection comes from John, actually. The CrossFit Games have been the test of fitness forever. It's where you find the fittest on earth. So it's okay to have 12 to 15 events over 3 to 5 days. It's a beatdown. And it after that you have your off season. It takes you 3 weeks to recover mentally, physically from this event. It's okay. But with the games, I don't know what happened, but all the competition tried to replicate the stimulus of the games. So even like French Hoedown, Dubai, Rogue, like this is a freaking big down for the athletes. It it takes them 2 to 3 weeks just to recover. So it's 3 weeks of non-training period that is going to affect their season. So the first thing we need to change is the format of these competitions. We don't need 3 days of competition, and we don't need 12 events. A competition can be run in 2 days, Saturday, Sunday, and 5 to 6 events. Maybe you can have 8 scores based on these events. You can do like part A, part B. You can do stuff like that to play with the scores. But if you have a competition that is seen by the athletes as a normal day of training, maybe a little bit more, but a normal day of training, they can then do the competition, take 1 or 2 days off, and then come back to their regular training. They don't have to prepare for that specifically, but they also don't need to recover and play with injuries after the competitions. And that's key in this system. The second thing is, now that this is said, we need a formula that allows top elite athletes to avoid the open and quarterfinals. CrossFit is the only sport where you have the number one in the world having to do the same qualifier as me. Like in golf, tennis, you can choose the sport. You don't see Rory McIlroy in golf or Novak Djokovic doing the qualifier for Wimbledon. He's qualified automatically to Wimbledon. He's the best in the world. He doesn't have to do that. In CrossFit, Tia Toomey has to do the Open, and then she has to do the quarters. We know she's going to qualify. There's no point except that she won't compete from January to April, May because of that. She needs to be ready. She cannot risk to have an injury, because if she's injured, then her season is over. So why don't we consider that the top 40 people in the world, or you can put the number like 20, 40, 60, 100, I don't know, are automatically qualified for their semifinal, which will allow them to compete outside of the regular CrossFit season and have this proper season I'm talking about. That being said, now we can go to the season as we see it. And I know John will agree on most of my points, but feel free to interrupt me. Um, we have three. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and one thing I do think, just to kind of set the framework a little, is where the Open came from. And back in the day of CrossFit, you used to have this thing called sectional. I mean, this is pre-sanctioned events. It was a sectional event. So in the UK, every country had a sectional that was organised, and then you could then qualify for the next stage of the European. And I think it was a very ingenious idea at the time. They really struggled organising, and so they kind of go, okay, how can we do this? They brought in the Open, and I don't think CrossFit realised just how much of a success the Open was going to be. They got hundreds of thousands of people signing up, and I don't think they even thought it would be that successful. And with those hundreds of thousands of people came millions of dollars of revenue that could then kind of fund this whole season. And I think the trouble is now is there's a little bit of a fear factor of like, you've got this Open and quarterfinal format where you're generating millions of dollars of revenue, and you get a bit scared to touch it, even though what may be on the other side is a lot better. And so I think this is a little bit where the conflict comes in. If you're a company and you go, okay, you've got this thing that arguably is not like a huge amount of work through the season, you then generate millions of dollars through it, the community like it, why would you touch it? And then I think this is where you go, well, actually, what's on the other side of this? Is there something a lot better? And this is where the discussion of like a proper season comes in, because I think everyone's in agreement that the season right now is not optimal for the sports, for fan base, for businesses, for viewership, for whatever it may be. The current season is not optimal for a myriad of reasons.
And just to piggyback on that, I'm not saying that there should be no Open. I think the Open and quarters should stay there for people like me or people that are on the border of qualifying to semifinal. We need to get them the opportunity to prove that they belong at semis, and that's crucial. But at the Open, what I think scares the most CrossFit is if the professional athletes like the Tia of the world and the Jeffrey Adler of the world, if they don't do the Open, maybe I won't be as motivated to do it. But you know what? What we like is actually watching the Open announcement. What I want to see is I want to see professional athletes throw down for just one workout. So it it's not because they don't have to do the Open to qualify for semis that you cannot invite them to do the announcement. They will be thrilled to do the Open announcement anyway. But I'm not watching, I don't know for you, but I'm not watching every top 10 videos of each weekend at the Open. I'm watching the Open announcement, and if one of the athletes release a video on YouTube, I'm going to watch it just for fun. But I don't compare and study every score, especially now that it doesn't matter. You just have to be in the top 25%. And John knows that athletes like Jacqueline are going to do the Open workout in the middle of their day like it's nothing. It doesn't matter. Even if she's sick and she's injured, she's going to be in the 25% anyway.
And I think this is a really valid point that's completely overlooked, is that really the Open is a community participatory event. And by making any of these changes to the season, I also don't think you will have any negative effect on the Open. And in fact, I think you'll have all of the top athletes supporting the Open because they all support the community and they all understand this. I think the issues start to arise when the athletes are forced to do this event, which everyone kind of realizes is a bit pointless because, as we know, they're all going to qualify easily. So it is a good point, and the Open doesn't have to disappear. Actually, it's kind of value it and respect it for what it is, which is a great event for the community. I love doing the Open because, I get to throw down for 3 weeks. Members of the gym, as Thibaud said, it's you watch the open announcement, and this is also another point, is that it's another touch point to see the elite athletes, which is what we want to see more of, doing something. We don't look at the open leaderboard and be like, I'm going to watch Justin Medeiros do thrusters and burpees. Now, if he went head to head with Fraser, now that's, or he went head to head with Krennikov, that's something you'd really want to watch on a live event in a competition.
So this is like the idea of taking the professional or the top level athletes out of the open and out of the quarterfinal stages and just allowing them to show up at semifinals. How do you propose to decide which of those athletes should just go straight to semis?
It depends on the worldwide ranking system. And so if you look at the big picture, in order to get a proper worldwide ranking system, it should be based on multiple events and not just the games as it is today. So as of right now, if you don't qualify for the games, your name is going to drop down because most of the points you can have on or earn in the system are made at the games.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to have points that are won throughout the season in different types of events. And these type of events are ranked in 3 tiers. Tier 1 is super elite competition, Rogue, Dubai, Wadapalooza. These events where you have top elite games athletes. You have price purse around like from 75 to 250K. These are the top events, like the majors of the sports. Then you have tier 2 events that are elite slash games athletes slash semi-final athletes. And so it's national competition like French Throwdown, Madrid CrossFit Championship, Down Under Championship, Canadian Throwdown. These events where you have to qualify, you have to do qualifiers, and you'll see some games athletes, and most of them are semi-final athletes. The cash prize is on average between 5 and 25K. And then you have the third tier, which is regional competition. So I don't know all the events in every country, but I can name some in France. It's like affiliate batters, Marseille Throwdown, body fit contests. These competition where you have athletes that are about to qualify for semis, but not yet there. And these athletes are going to throw down at these competition. And if you have these 3-tier competition, it will allow the third tier to try to qualify for the second one and the second one for the first one. So you can earn points. Basically, if you do a top 10 at Rogue, it won't be valued as top 10 at the French Throwdown. You don't have the same strengths of field, so it's completely normal if you don't earn the same points. But imagine if you win the French Throwdown, then you get an automatic spot to compete at Wadapalooza. So you can integrate the next level by winning a tier 2 type of competition. Same for tier 3, where you can win the affiliate batters in France, and it gives you the opportunity to qualify automatically for the Madrid CrossFit Championship. So you can, with this system, compete throughout the year, earn enough points to then maybe change the league and go above. But it will also allow athletes like Jacqueline to win enough points and compete enough to make sure she has an automatic spot for the semifinal. It will give more exposure to the brands, to the athletes, more potential earnings financially for the athletes. You can watch CrossFit almost every weekend with this system. And to come back to your question about how do we make these events successful from a financial standpoint, well, by giving them the opportunity to be a part of the CrossFit season. If a small competition like the affiliate battles in France are part of the season, trust me, the biggest French athletes will go there, compete. But brands like us will be interested in sponsoring these events because it now counts as the true season. Right now, it's a small competition, not professional. It is not recognized by CrossFit as an official competition. So we want to focus on professional level. But now it becomes professional thanks to that. And the beauty of it is that all these events I'm talking about already exist. So you take them as they are today. Maybe you move the date a little bit to fit the season, but you don't have to create or invest something from CrossFit HQ to make this happen. You have to give them a stamp that says, all right, you're top tier 3 type of competition. Um, you need to follow these rules that are pretty basic. And maybe one day, if you do an awesome job, you might become a tier 2 competition. And now the possibilities to gain more big sponsors can happen. So this format does exist already, but we don't use it. And by having that, that's what I want to make the point is athletes need more competition to compete to earn money. If a sponsor like us, okay, if we know that an athlete is going to compete at, I don't know, 10 events throughout the season and so get 10 times the visibility that he has today, we're going to pay him more. I'm 100% sure of that. So they're going to earn more money, be more professional, and it's going to grow the entire sport, maybe bring TV rights, TV channels to follow the season. It's going to give media more opportunity to cover stories. That's what we want at the moment, and it's possible, and it doesn't require a lot. I don't know what's your take on that is, John.
I have so many questions. John, I mean, like, guys, how do you propose that it would be? Who would organise this then? If it's not a CrossFit's responsibility, CrossFit HQ's responsibility, are you suggesting that a new organisation has to be formed that can organise all these different, like the way that
No,
the events
it, the,
happen, or is it?
these events can be run as they are today, independently. You just give them the official stamp of this is a CrossFit season competition official. And so if you go there, you compete and you podium, you have points for the worldwide ranking season. That's it. It doesn't have to be
And
from
the rank?
HQ. HQ does nothing in this except doing, all right, we accept you as a part of the season.
Okay, what happened to strength and field? Where did that
Well,
go? Because isn't that supposed to be a ranking
do,
system?
do you think that it is used already? Like we talk about
No.
strengths of field, but I don't see how. For me, strengths of field mean at every semifinal, you take the worldwide ranking system and you see how difficult it is to qualify in this region. This is not used like this at the moment. At the moment, we say, all right, we're gonna do the repartition based on the worldwide ranking system. It creates some sort of strength of field, but this is not what I see as it should.
But so I think that there are some key principles as to why this is important. I think one of the biggest things is that, as Thibaud said, you get events happening throughout the year. And you speak to most fans. What's been the most exciting thing this year? Probably seeing Tia and Laura throw down at Rogue. But actually, I think it would be even more exciting, if that, say, qualified you through to the next stage. Or in Dubai this year, you had the males was pretty stacked, but actually on the female side, you had Claudia and Andrea, two relatively unknown athletes who could have made a bit of a name for themselves. But now Dubai just doesn't count for anything. It's like completely irrelevant because it doesn't follow any. There's no storyline or continuity in the season or anything that happens. Everything's standalone, and so by unifying these things, it's important. And as Thibaud made the very good point, there is already this structure here. I mean, the reason it was so easy for CrossFit to completely go, okay, actually, you know what? Let's just have a sanctioned events. It's very easy for them to do because the whole framework is already there. They can take the competitions in house, but then the next year in a very easy manner, they can just take them out house, because there is this whole infrastructure in the CrossFit ecosystem. And again, I think it comes into a little bit of the history. CrossFit's always had this thing with affiliates where they don't want to take any control. They don't want to tell them how to run their business, all of these things. But I think the trouble is managing the community and the sport in exactly the same way with exactly the same principles. The sport is one thing, it's its whole entity, and the affiliates and the community is a whole different entity. And I think trying to just merge principles between these two very different concepts is sometimes where the sport kind of gets a bit paralyzed in some ways and doesn't take the advancements forward that it should.
What about as a sponsor, the influence that you have on events, Thibaud? I mean, do you feel that if this format was in place, that you would then would you be able to follow through with all of the things that you're suggesting? Or is it, I mean, have you actually done like a business plan for this idea?
We did. We did. For us, it's always the same thing. I don't see a competition as just an investment. We see that as a support. I'm saying that to everyone in this ecosystem, but we should all, us brands, invest in growing the sport, because we're just going to grow the cake and our piece of cake will be bigger. That's it. So if CrossFit goes to 1 million participants at the Open, I'm sure we're gonna double or triple our revenue based on that. So there is also an interest on our side to grow the sport. But this conversation what didn't start from a business standpoint, but from a fan perspective, completely a fan perspective. And I think, like I said, both are completely related. I think if we have this season, it will allow us to sponsor more events as well as our competitors. And like I said, this is positive. Like the Progrm, SGPO, Mayhem, they're all competitors. But if they all do a great job at communicating about CrossFit and growing the sport and the methodology itself, then in the end, they're gonna have more members. I'm sure. Even though members can come from Mayhem at first, they're gonna then switch to the Progrm and maybe 2 years later switch to SGPO. But it's just a cycle of people that are switching from one brand to another, and then it's up to you to do the best job ever to keep them and retain them. But in the end, that's the big, like we are thinking of that not as a business, but how do we grow this methodology that we love so much? And John was talking about the affiliates, and without the affiliates, John and I would be nothing. Without affiliates teaching the methodology on a daily basis, there would be no mobility issue. There would be nothing. So GOWOD wouldn't exist. So we owe them a lot. But I think that the money should not be invested towards affiliate and affiliate only, but towards the sport. Because if the sport grow on a bigger scale on TV, and that if you ask anyone in the street what CrossFit is and they can answer you, then these people are gonna then try CrossFit someday and then go to an affiliate. So it's like if you grow the sport and the sport is bigger, affiliates will be bigger, and not the other way around. If you grow the affiliates in numbers, it doesn't mean that they're gonna follow the sport automatically. So I don't know if I'm really clear about that, but I think priority number one should be media and growing the sport, which will lead to more people in the affiliates and more affiliates.
And actually, I think one thing that's really important is that if you look at the growth of the sport again, I think the most pivotal moment in the sport of CrossFit was when Reebok came on as sponsors. So the year before, we were basically the European regionals was in like a car park, just, it's a random place in a car park. All of a sudden, Reebok came on, and it's like huge. I mean, this is 2011 time, so we're over 10 years ago now. But it kind of like injected this whole different feel into the sport. Like all of a sudden, in the European regionals was held in the UK that time, and you were like the Reebok Stadium, which is a football stadium for Bolton Wanderers, a team in the Premier League. And all of a sudden, these athletes like Annie and Froning were taken on world tours after the CrossFit Games. And all of these things were happening in the sports, but actually affiliate growth at that time was also huge because Reebok were like putting this on there were commercials, there was like everything was happening, and people were going into gyms, as we talked about before, purely because they'd seen it on TV and were inspired by, whatever, Froning doing thrusters, or this Icelandic girl who'd won the games and they wanted to be like Annie, so they'd walk into a CrossFit gym. And this model's existed in so many other sports where, and the amazing thing with CrossFit is that, no one owns golf. There's like CrossFit own CrossFit, and so they benefit from anyone walking into a CrossFit gym or taking advantage of this. So it's like they kind of, by improving one aspect in this kind of pinnacle, and I think sport's very inspiring in that way. You look at someone, as Thibaud said, I have no desire to play on the PJ Tour, but I see Tiger play golf, or I see Rory McIlroy hit a drive, and it makes me want to go play, not because I want to be like them. It's just nice to see someone play at that level. And it's the same in our sport. You see, like, honestly, when you see the top athletes and what they're able to achieve, it makes, again, I have no desire to be that top athlete, but it makes me that bit more inspired to train, to get a bit stronger, to work on my conditioning. And that does translate through. The amount of people that these top athletes inspire to go train is huge.
So we're in the inspiration game.
Well, yeah, I think we are. And actually, CrossFit talks about this, that actually inspiring a population to go and train, to develop the community is really important. And you see it in a lot of gyms that the community is really behind the elite athletes. The amount of athletes that are funded to go to the games by their community, especially in the age group, especially in the masters, the teens, but even some of the elites who've maybe not made it to that level, they'll sell t-shirts in their gym, and people buy like 5 t-shirts, or they chip in extra money just because they love having someone in their community who's going to the CrossFit Games. They just really enjoy that part of it. Or, the coaches of the gyms, the owners of the gyms.
Yep. So guys, have you proposed this change to anyone at CrossFit?
I did.
Oh, and
Yes,
how did it go, Thibaud?
we're not the first one to talk about it. There was a lot of conversation in many podcasts. We heard Brent Fikowski talking about it recently. He was mentioning an ATP format like in tennis. I know for a fact that CrossFit is actively working on a new season format, and I would say that this is going to happen, I hope, for 2025, maybe 2026. But I know they're actively working on that. So they know there is a need, and it needs to change.
So change is
I also,
coming.
but they have a limited resource, like human resource. We always see CrossFit from an external point of view as a gigantic company with, like, I don't know, 150 people working for them. This is not true. I'm pretty sure they're almost the size of us. GOWOD, so it's quite small. So they need more people, I think, to make this reasonable and happening. So I hope they will. I know that another topic of discussion on the table recently for them and is the media aspect of it, because, like John said, in order to inspire the John Does of the world, we need to know who the athletes are on a personal level, and the pinnacle of the sport, like the biggest spike we ever had was 2018, which is when we had the biggest media team at CrossFit, which is when we had, for me, the best documentary done by the Buttery Bros. And this is where you could actually know who the athletes really are outside of the floor. Like I know that I liked Rich Froning because I knew about him, his story, his wife, um, the adoption with his kids. Like we knew that, we were aware of that. So it was like I knew Rich Froning personally, so I could identify myself or just rooting for him because I knew his story. Same for Catherine. Like we heard about a story with a grandma. Like I don't usually cry for some things, but I remember crying because of that. And so it gave me the winning of knowing who she is, following her on social, like buying stuff she was wearing, like stuff like that. We need this story on a personal level. And if you look at right now, the two fittest person on earth, Laura Horvath and Jeffrey Adler, I don't know anything about them. And like nothing. Did you know that Amanda Barnard actually adopted a child a month prior to the games? No, you don't, because it wasn't covered. So imagine if you cover this story of Amanda, the amount of support she would have had at the games on site. Insane.
And I will. So one thing with Sarah, like back in 2016, like 15 to 16, we very much lived that boom. Sarah on that Netflix documentary. I mean, seeing her rise to stardom was phenomenal. And it was because of media. And I would say it was because of the Netflix documentary. It went out to a general population. Just, I was happened to be in that documentary. And I had friends from school that I had not spoken to in like 10 years who had messaged me, oh, it's cool to watch the Netflix documentary. And these are people who aren't even involved in the sport. And Sarah like skyrocketed. I mean, when she went to the games, like a few, like, tens of thousands of followers, maybe 10, 20,000. She shot up to like 1 million followers almost overnight because of that general population getting involved. And we see all these examples these days with Formula One on Netflix, with golf on Netflix, with tennis on Netflix. And actually, CrossFit was one of the first sports to kind of do that in that way. But, since I can't remember when the last one was released on Netflix, 16, 17, something like that. And we've not, unfortunately, had that same kind of momentum and stimulus since that era.
Yeah, I think that the Buttery
You need a
Bros
new drive
and
to survive.
yeah, we need a something to survive CrossFit. But like Sevan and the Buttery Bros had done such an amazing job with these documentaries. Like, and the main difference between the 2018 documentary and the 2022 documentary is the outside of what happened on the floor. Like if you look at the last documentary, it's all about who won event 3, who won event 4. We already saw that. I know, I was there. I know who won. I know the final result. That's not what I want to see. I want to see the behind the scene. I want to see the emotion before and after a workout. I want to see what happened in their personal life. I want to get to know them. That's what we all want. Like I'm always taking this example. We're sponsoring Jeffrey Adler. I know him since 2017 personally, and I know less about him than I know about Pierre Gasly, the Formula 1 driver. And I have his phone number. I can call him. I text him, but I don't know him because of that. So, and I think that Jeffrey Adler does not get the recognition of what he did this year, winning the games and where he comes from, because no one knows his story and his journey from being a volunteer at the games to where he is today. Um, we need to cover this story, and I know it's a huge budget. Like media is always a huge budget, but it's worth it. It is worth it. Like spending millions on a documentary, on a TV show, series, YouTube, whatever it is, will bring so many people to the CrossFit Games in person competition, to the Open, and to the affiliates, and numbers of affiliates that will be created because of that. That if you do the math, I'm sure it is profitable.
You gotta wonder though, Thibaud, that like it's not for lack of trying that people have tried to tell Laura's story, for example, and she doesn't want it told. You know,
I
some
would.
people don't necessarily want
I think
to.
the big trouble is that nothing comes from the central HQ now. So it's like nothing comes from CrossFit. There's all like, obviously after the 2018 split, like Buttery Bros had to create their own channel. Savan had to create his own channel. Laura now has her own channel. Medeiros
Mm.
has his own channel. And I think that actually if CrossFit had a channel, it's just because it's kind of unified under the brand. And this is why I believe that it's the change really has to come centrally for these things to really make a difference, because we all do CrossFit. That's what we do. And so if CrossFit can kind of make change, and we're all in support of the company moving forward, the company making these changes, because we heavily benefit. If CrossFit does better, we do better, and that's why we want to see that grow. And that's why I think that, like, has CrossFit done a documentary on Laura? Or and speaking of like brand ambassadors, like Jeffrey Adler could not be. He is the perfect brand ambassador for CrossFit. He follows the zone diet. He does CrossFit.com workouts. Like affiliate owners, they volunteer together. I mean, he is like the pinnacle of a brand ambassador for CrossFit. And then he just so happened to go and win the CrossFit Games. I mean, how have they not like delved into his life and explored this like person who like literally follows the CrossFit methodology to a T?
Agree.
Agreed.
But yeah, I mean, if Laura doesn't want her story to be covered, that's up to her. And it's fine. We don't need to force her. But there
Mm.
is other athletes that might benefit from it. And
Yeah,
look
definitely.
at who is the most, like, the most successful athletes, the most followed athletes at the moment. They all were in the 2017 and 18 documentary. Matt, Tia, because they're like the biggest, like, top athletes in the world, obviously. But after that, you have Sarah, Catherine, Josh Bridges. Josh Bridges has never won the CrossFit Games. Like,
No, what's the fuss about
the best he has ever done is podium. But you know more about Josh Bridges than Jeffrey Adler, Laura Horvath, Emma Lawson combined. And Dan Bailey. You know everything about Dan Bailey because he was covered in these stories. So they were
Mm.
actually pushing these athletes to the top to rise and make a financial living out of that too. So right now they're kind of stuck on trying to build their own channels on YouTube, because if they don't, CrossFit is not going to help them. And that's the problem of it right now. I think that if we can come back to what they were doing at the time, all this new generation of athletes will benefit from it. They won't have to run their own YouTube channel, but they will have a new impact on new people going then to affiliates, trying CrossFit, and convincing their friends and family to try and work out with them. So the impact is going to be huge.
Thibaut, you did say that you'd spoken to CrossFit about this idea, but you didn't tell me what the response was.
It's we know there is work to do. We're trying to, but it then comes back to, we have a business to run, we have investors. There were, I think that when Don Fall took over the company, he had other priorities that had to be made, and he needs to be financially stable before being able to do what we talked about. And I trust Don pretty much. I think he's the person to run a CrossFit, and bring him to what he wants. but it needs time. And I know this is frustrating for all of us. Trust me, it is. But they know that. And doing these podcasts is also a way to brainstorm around ideas, and maybe that one of them will hear us and take one slight piece of what we just said, and this will happen in 3 years, and I'll be happy if it's the case. But I think that we need to, all of us, brainstorm around what we think is best to grow the sport, the methodology and the affiliates. And if we all do, that's the beauty of our community. Like, CrossFit is special for this, because you can ask anyone in every gym in the world. We speak the same language and we all want the same thing. We know CrossFit can change life, health, fitness of the world, and we all want the same thing. So I think they listen to us. I think they'll do it. I'm sure they will. I don't know when, but let's help them to take the best decision as quickly as possible.
I guess that's a good place to stop, because that's like Thibaud's Christmas message to CrossFit. I think that it's a huge undertaking, Thibaud. I can see so many great ideas, but also like practically it's a big change for them. I think as a small group of people, like you said, it's going to take a lot of turning the boat around.
I would say this though, that they did manage to change the whole season to a sanctional season very, very efficiently and very quickly. So, and that was a huge change going from this old system to the new system, which they managed to do relatively seamlessly.
But then they changed it again.
Well, exactly. So they have the changeability.
That's true. They're good at changing things, so it should be no problem.
But
Yeah.
I don't think change is a bad thing. I mean, yes, we want more stability and consistency for the athletes and coaches and us brands, obviously. But if you try something and it doesn't work, it will be even more stupid to keep it as it is if it doesn't work. Like, so changing over and over until you find what really works maybe is the solution. The main problem is that when they change it, with our experience, we immediately think that nope, this won't be a good solution. I can assure you that. And most of the time we're right. It's the same for this quarterfinal this year format. You have 20%, 25% of athletes needs to have their videos reviewed. You have a month before the first competition. How it is going to work? You just shoot yourself in the foot by doing that.
Because it's a
So,
huge amount
like,
of work.
stuff like that, which sometimes make us think like, do they really want to, like do they really think like us, or do they see that like us? Because it seems weird. So I don't know. I think we're gonna be proven right again for this, but we might be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. But the goal is just to exchange what we think is best and give them feedback on that, and a new possibility to make the sport and the season better.
Spoken like a true fan.
True fan, true
Well,
fan.
yeah, true
If I
fan.
wasn't if I wasn't GOWOD CEO as of right now, I will tell the same thing.
I guess the thing that we forget is that CrossFit is still a very young sport.
Yep,
Like,
it is.
It doesn't just you don't get born perfect, do you? You have to grow up, mature, learn by your mistakes until you get to a kind of relatively stable adult. So
Yep,
still a teenager.
it's a baby. It's less than a teenager.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for coming on, Thibaud, and
My pleasure.
sharing with us
Thanks for having me.
your ideas, your thoughts. I think it's a great idea. I'm wondering who else thinks it's a great idea. Maybe we'll find out in the when we release the podcast anybody's got any suggestions or responses or comments, then you can do that below.
Please let us know. And
Yeah.
I'll see you, John. I don't know if Vicky, I'm gonna see you, but I'll see you in Miami in 3 weeks.
Maybe,
Oh, yes.
maybe I'm gonna try and find a golf course. I'm not gonna lie.
I found a few golf courses nearby where we can play.
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay, nice.
Is there time in Miami in between activations and taking care of elite athletes, guys? Really?
Can, when it's about golf, I can wake up at 4. It's completely fine.
Maybe we could be friends more. I got a job, but I be free on the weekends for sure. I ain't shallow, rather hop in your deep and me and more. She a short shot of something to think to lean on. I don't take a thing too light, so when you like, you be doing your thing. I know you right, been a minute since I met you by now. I know you right, like a motherfucker, fuck with it.